Julia Siragusa, joined by Carlos Ponce right there on to the left of me. Hi, Carlos. Welcome to the
Hi.
show.
Thank you, Tulio, as ever.
Center to our show, we have our guest today, who is the founder and CEO of InSilicoTrials Technology, Luca Emili. Hi, Luca. He's chiming in from Trieste, Italy. So it's good to have you. I know it's quite late there. Thank you for being with us. And let's get to know you a little bit before we go dive into the topic today. Today's an interesting topic. We definitely want to talk about it. I think we're going to have some controversial conversations, perhaps, maybe not. We'll see. But let's get to know you a little bit first, Luca. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about Luca Emili.
thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and good afternoon, everyone. I say that I am a really very uh, curious person. So, unfortunately, since I'm a child, I'm curious about everything. So, every topic for me is interesting. So, once I started university, I was fighting among going to engineering or going to economy, and decided to go to economy, but with a very strong love for engineering. And then after that, I went into the web industry at the end of the 90s. Then I've been in the cybersecurity for 10 years. Then I went to the consultancy and M&A, and then I went back to the technology apply in the healthcare from 2013. So a lot of different experience, always drive by curiosity and strong wish to learn and to approach a new topic and to see a lot of things from a different angle, where it's possible to innovate, to solve problem, to make the things better, combining experiences with the engagement of very great people to work with, and trying to do something better as it was done before.
Well, it's great to have you. Keeping up with the Italian tradition of curiosity dating back to Marco Polo. We've always been curious people, right? Looking for new adventures. So it's good to have you here. Let's talk about InSilicoTrials technology. Tell us what gave birth to this company. What was the idea? What do you guys do? Tell us about the business.
Yeah. InSilicoTrials is a web platform that is giving the opportunity to medical devices company and drug development company to use modeling and simulation, so to use very powerful computer tools to accelerate the R&D and regulatory approval of new products. Basically, what we're doing is a system that gives the opportunity to companies to benefit from research and algorithm developed by great researcher and great university, and to use them through a very, very simple web interface. So basically, we are doing a sort of crowd science mixed with technology transfer. So we are providing to company very powerful tools without need for them to develop them and without the need for them to have a very expert people to use them. So we help in a very complex process. This is the R&D that for a new drug takes 12 years and billions of dollars, or for a medical device, many years and dozens of millions of dollars. We help them to cut some phases, to reduce some burden, to reach a better, quickly decision, and also to support the approval to regulatory body for their products with a system that is not just a testing on animal, lab, or patient, but also with a simulation that are creating a very powerful environment that is speeding up a lot of industry so far, like aerospace and automotive, but is very poorly used in the healthcare.
Fantastic. Well, this is very timely. A conversation that needs to be had, technology that is absolutely necessary. You know, many years ago, we had problems that occurred maybe every 10, 20 years, right? Now things are happening like every other year. The 12-year research to get something out is just not effective. It doesn't work for our time. So let's go right into our topic today, Carlos. What's the topic we're going to be talking about? I'm looking forward to digging in and learning some more here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tulio, and thank you, Luca, for being with us today. Well, Tulio, you see, we today we're going to be discussing how to mix the cloud or crowd science and digital engineering to create better and safer cures. So, in that context, our guest is going to talk to us about accelerate, or the topic is accelerate drugs and medical devices development, or the digital revolution. And basically, that's what the topic is for today's conversation. So, Luca, let's start with that, with the topic. Why did you choose this particular topic, and why did you think it was relevant for today's day and age, please? Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, all around the world, we are suffering from the lack of response to the COVID-19 vaccine. So we are touching directly the problem that the non-existence of a cure is creating for all of us. Not only for the people that is ill, that have a problem, but also for people that is perfectly healthy that risk to become ill due to the lack of a vaccine in this case. So this is not related only to the vaccine, but there are a lot of things that need to be improved, like, for example, the PPE, so masks and other element, the air conditioning, or the way that people can stay in a building that could be improved using this digital revolution coming from the use of simulation in healthcare. So this is something that was existing also before COVID-19, but the need and the stress to make something available in the short time with a very quick safety checking was not so urgent before. Now we have a lot of urgent topics. Mm-hmm. And I think that in this moment to discuss how to adopt this digital revolution, not only for the COVID-19 vaccine, but in general, not that we are aware of this critical aspect of the R&D. This is something that can really move the decision of companies, of patient association, of regulators, or of institution to accelerate this transition. Because if we try to accelerate this transition, we will do something very good, not just to fight COVID-19, but also to fight other problems that now are less, let me say, debated, but they are still present. And unfortunately, a lot of people is suffering from COVID-19, but more people is suffering at the moment from cardiovascular diseases and cancer, etc. It's not that COVID-19 has taken away this kind of problem. So we really need to reduce the cost of products, or at least reduce the cost of R&D of products, and to make them available to a broader number of potential patients, because the people now want solution available and want to use it.
So Luca, go ahead, Carlos.
No, I was just going to say something. Luca, just one more thing, then I'll pass it on to Tulio. For those viewers who are really not well acquainted with the concept or the term of crowd science, would you mind explaining to us what it entails? What's crowd science?
Yeah, we have called crowd science the opportunity that we have now to provide very, very significant scientific component that are developed by research centers and that become a part of a software to people that has not the same know-how. So in our platform, we get many algorithms, let's call it like that, many models that are developed by research centers in Europe, US, India, Asia. And we take this part of software, we integrate them in the platform. And this software have inside all the outcome of very important research done by these research centers through the years. So we give the opportunity to company to use this component. So they access to a lot of different software that embed the science of these researchers. And as we have many of these, we define that as crowd science as the other crowd contribution are linked to the fact that many people are accessing to something provided by others, and they can benefit easily from the fact that the internet gives access to tools, information, and software in a way that also 10, 15 years ago was not so common, because 15 years ago it was not so normal for someone to use something on the internet. Now it's the normality. And so we want to make the science also be available through the internet very easily.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Tulio, please.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Before we started, you made mention about there's transferable knowledge from other industries that could be applied into the medical industry. And I'm starting to see, based on your explanation of crowdscience, a lot of similarity to open source, right? It used to be if you built the software 20 years ago, it could take you several years to get something out. Now with open source, with people contributing to that, I can borrow buttons and functionalities and such and basically create something rather fast. In a couple of months, I can get an application out because of open source. So are you applying a similar approach to the way scientists are researching for cures and also for equipment? I mean, that's an interesting comment you made earlier. Even just as simple as like the HVAC in a building, right? Never was thought about how do we protect if someone comes in who's sick, everybody else, right? How do you clean the air in such a way that it doesn't become a super spread situation in the office? So tell us a little bit about that. What's the transferable ideas that are currently not being utilized in the healthcare space or in the medical or the pharmaceutical space that could be utilized?
Yeah. Your example of open source is very, very good for what we're doing, because basically most of the most of the models that we are integrating coming from research centers has been published on a peer-reviewed journal. So it's the way that science is doing the open approach. So they publish what they have done, and they provide information to other researchers that are able to evaluate the outcome of this work. So we then take these very great pieces of software that are embedding the science, and we integrate them on our platform. But once a company wants to know what is that model, how it works, they don't have to rely on what we're saying only. They can go to the paper, read the paper, get a lot of information there, and use this open concept. So this communication concept on the content that is creating a significant reliability on how the component works.
Now, Luca, it took almost 30 years for the technology industry to move away from this idea of everything completely closed off, right? I have to own every piece of code so that it's special and unique, to realizing that that's actually not truly the IP. The IP might be an approach to something, how you solve something, some algorithm, something that's more than just the components of the software, right? Which is why open source works today, and you can get rapid results. Are you suggesting that pharmaceutical companies, medical equipment companies also move away from this idea of proprietary competing and more towards collaborating for those things that are basically reusable, that can happen fast, but still you can develop your own IP based on formulation and such? How does your technology enable all that?
Yeah, well, it's if we look at the R&D process, we have many components that can be considered at the same time. So once we go to the safety check, for sure to use elements that are providing indication of how a device or a drug would be safe or no is important for all the company, and it's important to know it as soon as possible. And to have this kind of outcome using data or virtual patient or model coming from other resources instead of just their internal R&D is very important, because this could accelerate a lot. The IP topic in the medical and pharma industry is a very significant point that is not easy to be managed. And we are, of course, working not on the IP on the side of the vendor or the producer, that of course need to invest a lot to get the results, also because there are some barriers like the regulatory one that require really to invest a lot, but also because about 75% of the investment in the pharma development don't take you to any kind of product, so they are completely wasted because they start to invest in a product that seems promising, but once you are in the pathway of development, then it fails. So the IP that for someone could seem a very critical point is one of the elements that give the opportunity to company to make this investment, because we are talking about a lot of money that is wasted every year, and you don't see that investment become a product. But there is an element that I want to mention, combining the previous question with what you just said. You were referring before to open source, and one of the most interesting example of open source is, of course, Linux as an operating system.
Mm-hmm.
But Linux as operating system was used by very reduced number of users until there was a company called Red Hat that decided to develop the, let me say, supported commercial version of Linux. So at that time, it was only a tool for expert users. Now it's become a standard. So most of the server online are based on Linux. So we are approaching the topic in the same way. So we don't expect that we are able now to completely revolutionize the industry in terms of IP, so from A to Z. But we want to focus on one very important part. That is it's also linked to the crowd science, to democratize the use of very complex tool in the R&D. So it's not the application on the specific IP of the pharma and the medical device company, but it's the application of know-how coming from research centers that become very easy to be used in a way that also small and medium enterprise, and there are dozens of thousands in the medical device sector in Europe, US, all around the world, that don't have enough resources to engage a strong scientific team with modeling competencies, could benefit from this kind of easy to use tool, as Linux is easy to use now thanks to Red Hat.
Interesting. That's very fascinating what you're doing, and good point about basically enabling certain countries and that don't necessarily have all the horsepower, if you will, to get behind some research to actually provide that empowerment and access. That brings me back to the question you mentioned about regulation and regulatory bodies. How much of the delay that is happening tied to regulation versus just not any innovation in many years on the approach towards actually developing drugs or medical devices? For what I'm trying to say is, we get used to doing things a certain way that we just assume this is how it is, right? It's like the baby elephant tied to the pole that couldn't break free, and after many years it becomes this giant elephant and doesn't even try to break from the pole because it thinks it can't. And is there some of that going on as to why it's taking 10-12 years to research something versus quote unquote the regulatory limitations? What's been your experience so far in introducing this to companies? Are they open to adopting this, saying, wow, this is great, we can speed things up? Or they're like, nah, we're doing things the way we're doing it? What's been your experience so far? What hurdles are you facing?
Well, it's a matter of education. In fact, we're investing a lot in the creation of awareness on these new opportunities. Regulatory bodies, specifically FDA in US, are really encouraging the adoption of modeling and simulation for the development and approval of medical devices and drugs. In some cases, they are requesting to provide simulation outcome, specifically, for example, when we talk about pediatric product, they are really encouraged to have this kind of outcome coming from tools and not only from patient, that in case of child, of course, is really a complex topic to be addressed once we think about enrollment in a trial. So the numbers, unfortunately, are saying now that there is need a lot of time and a lot of money. Why? Because basically there is a need of safety. There is a need of check on what is developed, and there is a need that patient can trust a product because someone has checked it before someone provides this product to the patient itself. We could discuss years about the fact that maybe if no one would check in it, there would be more product, but at the same time, for sure, we will have also more problem. So the point is not if to reduce the time or to increase the check, is how to balance correctly the need of innovation and the need of safety for the patient. All around the world, there are also different regulations about drugs and devices, not only for the R&D, also for the promotion. That, for example, in US, there are commercial about drugs that in Europe doesn't exist. So it's a complex aspect, and unfortunately, it's a balance among public safety on one side, so avoid to have product doesn't work. And there was, unfortunately, in the past, a lot of product that created a big problem, with the need to have something innovative, something new that is able to help to deal with this new detailed problem that are not now so generic as it was 30 years ago, where you had the drug for the cancer, or you have just a simple orthopedic implant. Now you have a lot of specialization, and the patient need to have something specific. So the precision medicine is really driving the need of check in a way that is on a very targeted product that require also higher evaluation, because the potential user are reduced. So you don't have a simple statistical base to make this kind of evaluation, but you really need to look for that patient that has this orphan disease or this specific problem, and to test if this product is going to be good for the other patient or no.
Luca, I got a question, and well, my question is more on the average user side, because I'm not a tech expert. So on the partner side, I'm talking about the research centers, healthcare companies, software companies, cloud providers, and we're talking about the way, this is how I understand the very complex data modeling procedure. So how does InSilicoTrials make sure that on the partner side, all the data that is obtained is basically meets a specific standard, so to speak, or is there a QA in place, or is there some kind of validation process before it gets sent to InSilicoTrials, so that you end up sending it to users? How does this work, please?
Yeah, it's a very important aspect. So once you are using an engine to make some elaboration, the quality of the outcome depends on the quality of the input. To be sure that the input is enough qualified, we have some standard of quality in terms of checking and evaluating what is the input, and so we define a pattern of data acquisition, so that we are able to confirm that the outcome is at least at a certain level. The highest number of input we could have, and the more curated are the data, the better it would be. The point is that not every time you are able to receive data that are perfect. And what we use is to have virtual patients that are coming from curated and very well done databases. And we compare how the patient that is provided by the customer is in front of the virtual patient that is under the same problem or is in the same kind of trial. So we are really able to check if the group of patients enrolled in the InSilicoTrials are corresponding to the data of patients that are already being measured and validated on other activity done in the past by research centers. So we don't have to wait to enroll a lot of patients to check it, but we are able to make this confrontation very, very quickly.
Thank you, Luca. I got one more before I pass it on back to Tullio. And we've been discussing InSilicoTrials and the esoteric part of it, so to speak, the engineering. But I'd like to just put in a couple of minutes to talk about the company itself. I'm talking about the company culture. What makes it a great place to work, or why would even there's someone out there watching who might be wanting to might be interested in reaching out to InSilicoTrials as a company? What would you say that makes InSilicoTrials a great company to work for, or a great atmosphere that would foster research and innovation? And in other words, why would anyone, or why would somebody want to reach out to you to work for InSilicoTrials? What makes it a great place?
Well, it makes a great place because it's a place where there is great people, and the people that we have in the company is really fantastic from basically all over the world. We're not so many at the moment. We're growing. We have closed a round of investment from a venture capital the end of July. It was about $4 million. And now we are growing, so we are hiring very specific position in the R&D and also sales and marketing. So InSilicoTrials is a great company at the moment because the people here is doing an incredible job working on the future. So this is what we're doing. We do not work on what is the standard, what is the things that normally the people is doing, but we want to create the environment that is going to be the future for the R&D in the healthcare. And we are really passionate about that. We really love what you're doing, and every day there is a new challenge. And we are really exploring the potential of the combination of these three factors. Technology that is changing every day, is growing every day. The cloud now gives opportunity that 3 days ago was impossible. Science is changing continuously, and the problem is to keep the people updated. But once this science becomes a piece of software, we distribute the science in a very great way. And then regulation. As we said, regulation is something that in healthcare is very important for the safety of the product. And we put this regulatory aspect into the use of the technology, applying to the science know-how. And we combine these three elements, making this as a virtual lab that is able to really accelerate the development of products.
That's
very. Back to you, Julio.
I mean, I love the audacious goals and working on the future, and the idea of crowd science, distributed science. I think that's brilliant, and we wish you a lot of success with that. It's very timely, and I'm sure people who want to make a difference in the world and do things that are bold and daring, this is definitely the place to go do that. So congratulations. We'll have to stay in contact with you to see how you guys progress. We want to hear some use cases in the future. Maybe we'll have you back in a year or so and see where you guys are at. We would love to do that. Thanks for being with us today. We're up on time. Just wait as we wrap up. Carlos, we got the recap show coming up on Monday at 1 p.m. Anyone who's watching that would like to participate on the recap show, just comment where you're watching. We'll be happy to make you one of the Brady Bunch squares here. Mondays, we're starting to have a little fun with the recap show, so definitely join us, bring some laughter, bring some interesting points. And then what do we got coming up in terms of guests?
Again, yeah, thank you, Tullio. Well, we got a full week ahead of us, and that is going to be, okay, here we go. Tuesday, it's going to be with Gino Donati, from the founder of Seats2C, which is, I think it's an sales automation platform. And the topic is sales development can make or break a startup. But that's for Tuesday. Wednesday, we have David Wald, the CEO and co-founder of Acclaimant, and we're going to be speaking about identifying and protecting what's important. So that's for Wednesday. And then finally, on Thursday, we have the future of retail through people-to-people shopping with Raji Kalra, the co-founder and CEO of a platform called PeopleTale. I think it's e-commerce, if I recall correctly. So that's what we have, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen in the public. That's right here on Dojo Live, 1 p.m. Pacific, right here. Join us.
I also want to say we're adding another segment on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific. I'm going to be co-hosting it with a good friend of mine, Ram Ganasan, and we're going to be talking about everything digital. So it's going to be specifically around customer experience, digital transformation, and our guests are going to be companies undergoing digital transformation and we're going to share their stories. So we're going to add another segment. We'll announce what that is next week. Welcome back, 1 p.m. on Monday. Have a safe week.